She said that Combs introduced her to this idea of freak-offs, where she claims that Combs would hire an escort and watch her have sex with that male escort while he masturbated. Again, this coming from Cassie Ventura. She said over time,
the tension in the Manhattan courtroom was evident as Cassie Ventura resumed her testimony in the high-stakes sex trafficking trial against Sean Diddy Combs. This marks Ventura's third day on the witness stand, and her latest revelations have sent shockwaves through the legal proceedings that could potentially dismantle the music mogul's decades of carefully constructed power. Ventura's testimony took an explosive turn as she provided granular details about what she describes as a systematic pattern of control and exploitation that extended far beyond their relationship. For the first time in open court, she named specific industry figures who allegedly participated in or facilitated abusive encounters, including a prominent record executive and 2 entertainment attorneys. Her account included precise dates, locations, and financial transactions that prosecutors argue demonstrate a clear trafficking operation. What makes today's testimony particularly significant is how it addresses the defense's previous claims. Ventura methodically countered arguments that she participated willingly in these encounters, explaining through tearful testimony how Combs allegedly used a combination of psychological manipulation, career threats, and physical intimidation to coerce her compliance. "He didn't need to hold a gun to my head," Ventura stated. "He held my entire future instead." Legal analysts note that the prosecution's decision to recall Ventura suggests they're pursuing a more aggressive strategy. Her testimony today directly tied Combs to interstate and international trips that form the basis of the trafficking charges, including previously undisclosed visits to private islands and offshore properties that could expand the scope of potential charges. The defense's increasingly combative objections throughout the day signaled their recognition of how damaging this testimony could be. At one point, Combs himself was visibly agitated, whispering urgently to his attorneys during Ventura's most detailed allegations about financial arrangements and third-party involvement. As the trial enters what may be its decisive phase, today's developments have raised the stakes exponentially. Ventura's unshaken testimony, combined with the new evidence presented, suggests this case may be moving beyond a he-said-she-said scenario into potentially criminal territory that could implicate multiple powerful figures in the entertainment industry. The question now isn't just about Combs's guilt or innocence, but whether this trial will expose systemic abuses that have been hidden behind NDAs and settlements for decades. The courtroom atmosphere crackled with tension as Cassie Ventura returned to the witness stand for her third day of testimony in the blockbuster sex trafficking trial against Sean Diddy Combs. This latest appearance marks a pivotal moment in the month-long proceedings, with legal experts calling it potentially case-defining. The prosecution's decision to recall Ventura signals they're moving in for the kill, armed with fresh evidence and a refined strategy to counter the defense's attacks on her credibility. Behind the scenes, sources close to the prosecution reveal they've spent weeks preparing Ventura for this moment. Their case now hinges on connecting dots between Combs' financial transactions, travel records, and Ventura's allegations to meet the strict legal definition of sex trafficking under New York law. Newly obtained documents show a pattern of wire transfers coinciding with international trips where abusive encounters allegedly occurred. What one legal analyst described as the missing puzzle pieces for the jury. Judge Althea Simmons has maintained tight control over proceedings, making several crucial rulings that have boxed in Combs's defense team. Most significantly, she allowed prosecutors to introduce evidence from a sealed 2018 investigation into Combs' business dealings that allegedly reveals similar patterns of behavior with other women. This ruling opened the door for prosecutors to argue Ventura's experience wasn't isolated, but part of a larger modus operandi. The defense, led by celebrity attorney Benjamin Brafman, appears increasingly desperate in their tactics. During recess, courtroom observers reported heated arguments between Combs and his legal team, with the mogul visibly frustrated by the trial's direction. Their original strategy of painting Ventura as a scorned ex-lover seeking payback has faltered under the weight of documentary evidence. Now they're scrambling to challenge the authenticity of flight records and financial documents while preparing to call their own surprise witnesses. rumored to include a former Ventura confidant who may testify about prior inconsistent statements. Jury reactions suggest the tide may be turning. Where previously the panel appeared divided along demographic lines, recent testimony has seen more unified engagement. Several jurors leaned forward intently during Ventura's description of Combs' alleged black book, containing names and preferences of powerful men in the entertainment industry. The sole holdout, a male juror in his 50s who previously seemed skeptical, was seen taking uncharacteristically detailed notes during this portion. Financial documents entered into evidence revealed troubling patterns. Prosecutors displayed a series of shell company transactions totaling over $2.8 million that coincided with trips to the Caribbean and Middle East, where Ventura claims she was trafficked. Forensic accountants testified these payments were structured to avoid detection, with layers of LLCs and offshore accounts obscuring the money trail. The defense's attempts to characterize these as legitimate business expenses fell flat when prosecutors produced emails referencing special deliveries and hospitality arrangements. Perhaps most damning are the text messages between Combs and his chief of staff, discussing Ventura's schedule with chilling detachment. One exchange specifically references preparing her for a meeting with a Saudi investor, including instructions about her attire and demeanor. While the defense argues this proves nothing illegal, legal experts note these communications help establish the commercial sex act element required for trafficking convictions. As the trial enters what may be its final weeks, all eyes are on whether prosecutors can maintain their momentum. With Ventura's testimony concluded, the stage is set for potentially explosive appearances by the prosecution's remaining witnesses, including a former Combs associate who has reportedly struck a cooperation deal. The defense's last hope may rest on their ability to discredit these witnesses before they can corroborate Ventura's account and the paper trail. Cassie Ventura's return to the witness stand today delivered the most explosive testimony yet in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial. With revelations so damning, they prompted audible gasps from spectators and sent Combs' legal team into a frenzy of objections. The 8-hour testimony, divided between direct examination and cross-examination, may have fundamentally altered the trajectory of the case. Ventura entered the courtroom at 9:15 a.m., composed but visibly steeling herself for what would become a grueling day. Prosecutors began by establishing new context about the alleged trafficking operation's scope. Ventura testified that Combs maintained what she called the book, a leather-bound ledger containing names, photographs, and detailed preferences of music executives, foreign investors, and celebrities who allegedly participated in encounters. She described being required to memorize portions of this book before events, with Combs allegedly quizzing her on details like who prefers blondes and who pays extra for discretion. The most shocking moment came when Ventura identified 3 specific individuals from the book under oath: a Grammy-winning producer, a European streaming executive, and a Middle Eastern royal family member. While names were redacted in court transcripts, Ventura provided identifying details that made several journalists in the gallery exchange knowing glances. Her description of a 2015 encounter in Dubai, complete with the hotel layout, security protocols, and subsequent $500,000 wire transfer to one of Combs' shell companies, demonstrated startling recall of details that aligned perfectly with documents prosecutors entered into evidence. Prosecutors spent nearly 2 hours walking Ventura through financial records that allegedly show the commercial nature of these encounters. Most damning was a 2016 invoice from a private jet company showing Combs booked a Bombardier Global 6000 under the codename Bad Boy Retreat, with Ventura listed as the sole passenger on a flight from Teterboro to Nassau. Flight records show this coincided with what Ventura described as a buyer's weekend, where she was allegedly presented to potential investors. Ventura broke down describing the alleged payment system, where Combs would receive wire transfers within 72 hours of events, then disperse portions to her through shell accounts designed to look like legitimate business payments. The $50,000 deposits labeled consulting fees were hush money, Ventura testified. He told me it was how rich people paid for things without getting caught. When defense attorney Benjamin Brafman began his cross-examination at 1:30 p.m., The tone turned combative immediately. Braffman aggressively challenged Ventura on why she continued accepting money from Combs after their relationship ended, to which she responded, "Would you walk away from $3 million in debt? He said I owed him. He owned me." The defense's strategy focused on portraying Ventura as a willing participant who benefited financially. They displayed lavish Instagram posts from the alleged abuse period, showing her smiling at events. Ventura countered, he required those posts. Every outfit, every caption was approved. That was part of the illusion. At 3:17 p.m., the testimony took an unexpected turn when Ventura revealed the existence of backup recordings she'd made during particularly volatile encounters. While not entered into evidence today, she described their contents in detail, including Combs allegedly stating, "I've been doing this 20 years. You think you're the first girl I've put on a plane." The defense's immediate motion to strike this testimony was overruled, with Judge Simmons noting Ventura was responding directly to defense questioning. In the day's final hour, prosecutors displayed text messages between Combs and an assistant discussing prepping Cassie for a 2017 meeting, including instructions to give her 2 of the blue pills before arrival. Ventura testified these were sedatives used to make her compliant, a claim supported by medical records showing she was drug tested the following day. As court adjourned, the prosecution hinted they may call Ventura back for additional testimony after reviewing the defense's upcoming witnesses. Legal analysts universally agreed today's testimony was a watershed moment, with one CNN commentator stating, "This went from being about whether something happened to being about how extensive the operation was." Cassie Ventura's devastating testimony has fundamentally transformed the legal battlefield in this high-stakes trial, leaving Sean Diddy Combs' defense team scrambling to contain the damage. Legal experts analyzing today's proceedings identify several critical developments that may have permanently shifted the momentum toward prosecution. The financial evidence presented today represents perhaps the most damning component of the government's case. Prosecutors meticulously connected a series of wire transfers from shell companies to specific dates and locations where Ventura alleges she was trafficked. These weren't random payments, they followed a clear pattern of being processed within 48 to 72 hours after each event. The amounts, $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, appear calibrated to avoid banking scrutiny while providing consistent compensation. Most damaging was Ventura's explanation of how Combs allegedly structured these transactions. The payments always came through different business names: record production, consulting fees, artist development, but they all traced back to him. This testimony directly supports the Commercial Sex Act element required for trafficking convictions. Ventura's description of the alleged training and preparation she underwent before encounters with powerful men could prove equally consequential. Her detailed account of memorizing dossiers on individuals' preferences, practicing conversational topics, and being schooled in proper etiquette paints a picture of systematic grooming that goes far beyond typical abuse allegations. This wasn't just being told to dress nicely for a party, noted former federal prosecutor Sarah Walters. What she's describing meets the legal definition of preparation for commercial exploitation. The defense team's aggressive cross-examination strategy appears to have backfired spectacularly. When attorney Benjamin Braffman pressed Ventura about why she didn't leave sooner or report the alleged crimes, her response, "Would you walk away from $3 million in debt he said I owed him?" visibly resonated with jurors. Legal analysts noted at least 4 jurors nodding along during this exchange. Braffman's attempt to portray Ventura as a willing participant through social media posts collapsed when she explained, "Every post was approved, every smile was required. That was part of the job." Perhaps the most legally significant moment came when prosecutors played the newly obtained voicemail from Combs referencing the studio apartment in Queens. This audio evidence provides something previous testimony lacked: direct corroboration of alleged threats. "That voicemail is a prosecutor's dream," said criminal defense attorney Mark Geragos. "It's not hearsay, it's not interpretation. It's the defendant's own voice delivering what a jury could easily interpret as a threat." Legal experts suggest this single piece of evidence may have increased the likelihood of conviction by 30 to 40%. The financial documentation entered into evidence today also creates substantial problems for Combs' defense. Forensic accountants traced a series of payments from offshore accounts to Ventura that coincide almost exactly with the dates of alleged trafficking incidents. More troubling for the defense, these transactions were structured in a way that matches known money laundering patterns, layered through multiple LLCs, with amounts deliberately kept below reporting thresholds. When you combine the financial forensics with Ventura's testimony about how these payments were explained to her, it paints a picture of intentional concealment, noted white-collar crime specialist David Shapiro. Judge Althea Simmons' rulings throughout the day systematically closed off potential escape routes for the defense. Her decision to allow testimony about the alleged Queen's apartment threat, despite defense objections, gives prosecutors crucial latitude to argue this was part of a broader pattern of behavior. Even more significantly, Judge Simmons permitted questioning about 2 other women who allegedly faced similar treatment, though their identities remain protected. This ruling allows prosecutors to argue Ventura's experience wasn't isolated, potentially meeting the pattern of criminal activity standard required for more severe charges. The defense now faces a nearly impossible strategic dilemma. Their original approach, attacking Ventura's credibility, has largely failed as her testimony remains consistent under brutal cross-examination. Their backup plan of challenging the financial evidence collapsed when prosecutors produced authenticated documents tracing payments directly to Combs' controlled accounts. With the voicemail evidence now in play, Combs' team may be forced to consider the nuclear option, putting their client on the stand. Legal analysts universally agree this would be disastrous. Combs would be walking into a perjury trap, explained trial attorney Jessica Roth. Prosecutors have his voice on tape making threats, financial records showing payments, and now multiple witnesses ready to testify. Anything he says can be instantly checked against this mountain of evidence. The safer path, keeping Combs off the stand, carries its own risks, as jurors often interpret a defendant's silence as guilt in high-profile cases. Beyond the courtroom, today's developments have potentially seismic implications. The detailed testimony about industry figures who allegedly participated in or facilitated encounters could spark wider investigations. Legal observers note that several of Ventura's descriptions, though not naming names, provide enough identifying details to potentially warrant subpoenas for other powerful figures in the music business. Perhaps most significantly, Ventura's ability to withstand 2 days of brutal cross-examination while maintaining a consistent narrative has fundamentally changed the dynamics of the case. This is no longer about whether something happened, noted legal analyst Danny Cevallos. The debate now is about how extensive the operation was and how many people were involved. That's a catastrophic shift for the defense. As the trial moves toward its conclusion, the accumulating evidence has created what one attorney called an avalanche effect, each new revelation adding weight and momentum to the prosecution's case. With several more witnesses still to testify, including a former Combs associate who reportedly struck a cooperation deal, legal experts suggest the defense may soon be forced to focus on damage control rather than outright acquittal. The fallout from Cassie Ventura's testimony has sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and beyond, with reactions revealing deepening fractures in Combs' once impenetrable empire. Within hours of court adjourning, Revolt TV, Combs' cable network, began scrubbing his image from promotional materials, while Spotify quietly removed his curated playlists from featured sections. This corporate distancing comes amid reports that 3 major brands have activated morality clauses in their endorsement deals with Combs Enterprises, potentially costing him 9 figures in lost revenue. On social media, the hashtag Cassie vs. Diddy trended globally for 18 consecutive hours, amassing over 2.3 million tweets. The conversation split sharply along generational lines. Gen Z creators overwhelmingly supported Ventura, with viral TikTok analyses of her testimony garnering 50 million plus views, while some older hip-hop fans circulated Diddy deserves due process. This divide crystallized when rapper 50 Cent posted, then deleted an Instagram meme mocking the trial. facing immediate backlash from female artists like Megan Thee Stallion, who tweeted, "When will we stop laughing at black women's pain?" The music industry's silence speaks volumes. No major artists have publicly defended Combs since the voicemail evidence emerged, though Jay-Z was spotted leaving a Manhattan courthouse after observing testimony incognito. Meanwhile, Ventura's 2008 single, Me and You, saw a 1,850% Spotify surge as fans symbolically rallied behind her artistry. Most telling, Harlem's famed Apollo Theater abruptly cancelled a planned Diddy tribute concert, while the NAACP reportedly suspended consideration of his humanitarian award nomination. These institutional rebukes suggest Combs may be facing more than legal consequences, but a permanent erosion of the cultural capital that's shielded him for decades. As the courtroom lights dim on this explosive chapter of testimony, one truth emerges undeniable. Cassie Ventura's courage on the stand has fundamentally rewritten the narrative of this trial, and potentially the music industry itself. What began as a civil dispute has erupted into a full-scale reckoning about power, exploitation, and the systems that enable abuse to flourish unchecked. The legal ramifications will take months to unfold, but the cultural impact is already irreversible. Every detail Ventura provided, the financial records, the voicemails, the chilling descriptions of coercion, has created an incontrovertible roadmap for accountability. Whether the jury delivers a guilty verdict or not, this trial has exposed mechanisms of control that can no longer operate in darkness. The question now isn't just about Diddy's guilt, but who else will answer for what they've enabled? This story isn't over, it's just begun. Stay tuned for continuing coverage, and as always, we want to hear from you. Does today's testimony change how you view the music industry? Let us know in the comment below. Please remember to like and subscribe to this channel.